babyface or heel. Now, for those who may not know what babyface heel means in wrestling terminology, babyface, good guy, heel, bad guy, tweener in between. DeSean Jackson. I'm going to lean towards babyface. Look at the job he's done for Delaware State. Coach of the year, I think, right?
Coach of the year.
A hell of a job.
In almost 10 years.
The only controversy I had with DeSean Jackson was the tweet. Remember, champ, the tweet regarding Hitler. But DeSean Jackson did take accountability for it. Even Julian Edelman, who is also Jewish, reached out to DeSean Jackson and tried to teach him and educate him about how Jewish people, how they went through. So I applaud Julian Edelman on that. DeSean Jackson, he was exciting as a football player. I mean, he was electric speed. I still can't get over the Monday Night Football game when he and Michael Vick torched Washington. On the very first play, Michael Vick, play action, bootleg, threw a bomb to DeSean Jackson. DeSean Jackson had swag. One of my favorite DeSean Jackson moments, the miracle at the Meadowlands. When he scored the game-winning punt return touchdown. And how he torched Eagles fans, Giants fans that day. He devastated. He broke their hearts, man. But when I look at DeSean Jackson, swag, he from the Cali area. I mean, remember in the 2010s, I mean, of course, the song Teach Me How to Dougie, he was doing the Dougie dances. But electric, at that time, he was the best deep threat in football. He was great in special teams. He was explosive. And again, Andy Reid, he talks and loves Andy Reid so much. That's one of the reasons why I call Andy Reid a babyface, because he gets the most out of players. He gives players second chances. He gives people opportunities. He loves himself some Andy Reid. Andy Reid is the type of person, I believe in you. I'm going to give you this opportunity. Don't screw it up. And when you look at what DeSean Jackson has done, what he means to football, turning around Delaware State, winning Coach of the Year, his first year, I gotta say babyface.
Man, DeSean Jackson. I like DeSean Jackson, man. Swagger. He'll show you up. And look, thing about him, he wasn't perfect, man. He'll make a few boneheaded mistakes, man, like the time he thought
the Monday Night Football game against the Cowboys.
Oh my God! I'll never forget. I watched that game. My dad was cussing up a storm when he did that. You blank. If you would have ran the ball to this, but he was amazing. Remember, look, he has the NFL record for most touchdowns for 60 plus. That is 26. He's tied for the touchdown for 80 plus yards, 5. For touchdowns 50 plus, he's ranked second in NFL history, 31. The first player in the NFL outside of Khalil Mack, and the only player outside of Khalil Mack to make a Pro Bowl in 2 different positions. Kick return, wide receiver. And he did that much to the disdain of his quarterback at the time. We'll get into that a little bit later. DeSean Jackson, that was the only thing that I really had a problem with, was because of the tweet. That was it. Other than that.
And the Eagles, they had to keep it consistent because remember, you kept Riley Cooper, knowing what Riley Cooper said. So if you're Jeffrey Lurie, if you're Howie Roseman, even though the fact that you are Jewish, at the same time, you did keep Riley Cooper, knowing that he said the N-word, and Michael Vick and a lot of other people.
They vouched for him. And
so if you can keep Riley Cooper knowing what he said, I think you can do the same.
Yeah. Hey man, I love DeSean Jackson, man. DeSean Jackson's speedster could take the top off, man. There's guys that I wish that may never get into the Hall of Fame, but I wish that they would have shows on the forgotten. it's just like this guy was a speedster. This guy was a speedster. I think him and Santana Moss need to be definitely studied at a point as far as just pure speed was concerned. And look, they were not necessarily that big either. So, you
Yeah,
know,
Deshaun's like 5'10", a buck 70, buck 75.
yeah. So, for him to succeed at that level and just be braided like that, I mean, he was exciting, man. That was you knew you was about to see a show when he came on that field. That's how come to watch the Commanders win and got it, man. But another product of Andy Reid, loving what he's doing for the HBCUs. Hopefully, after his contract is up, he will stay at the HBCUs. I know that a lot of guys, and you can't blame them, they get a head coaching job and they move to greener pastures. And I know they get a lot of flack for that, but it's no different than any other job. Once you get the experience that you need and you want another job, I mean, that's just what that is. But I'm hoping that him, Marshall Faulk, guys like that stay at the HBCUs and bring a lot of needed attention back to the HBCUs as far as the NFL. Like I stated before, 10% of the Hall of Fame is from HBCU, including two of the greatest players of all time, that being Walter Payton and Jerry Rice. So I'm hoping that he stays and brings more attention to the HBCUs. But man, DeSean Jackson, hey man, exciting man. You knew you was about to get a show when he came up, man. Man, I'm smiling right now because it's just like I knew he was about to torch. You about to get torched for at least a touchdown. You about to get torched. Um, Thank you, DeSean Jackson, for going to an HBCU and turning that thing around. And surprisingly, it didn't get a lot of publicity. It did not get a lot of publicity that I hoped it would. I
I
remember I
think
said,
I think Champ, because also too his former teammate Michael Vick, I
yeah,
think was kind of overshadowed to some extent, but Deshaun, man, he was so electric. He was so smooth though, and fast. How he tore. I love seeing the pain on Giants fans when I talk about the miracle at the Meadowlands. I mean, how he scored that touchdown on that play, but man, he has swag. He has so much swag, man, and still does, man.
yeah,
BRF, man.
Yeah, I gotta go Babyface too as far as Shawn Jackson. When you look at the league and you look at some of the greatest wide receivers that's ever played, as far as like being under 6 feet tall, you look at guys like DeSean Jackson, you look at guys like Marvin Harrison, you look at guys like Steve Smith, guys like that who didn't necessarily have to be tall, but played a certain way that they could affect the game no matter who was on them, no matter what position they were at. I mean, Deshaun Watson might go down as arguably the greatest deep threat the league has ever seen. Like he could just kill you in so many different ways, whether it was kick returns, punt returns, lining up in the slot, lining up as an X or Z. Just it didn't matter where you line him up at. He could make a statement and he could make an impact regardless of where you put him. And I think that's what made DeSean Jackson like really, really scary because early in his career he was a kick returner, he was a special teams guy making a Pro Bowl, and then it was like when he finally got a real chance to kind of be like an every down wide receiver, you just see the impact and you saw how good he was, like hands, route running, ability to make tough catches. Like he could do it all. And like, yeah, like Champ said, yeah, there was a little a micro transgression here, but I mean, really outside of that, like the tweet, outside of that, he wasn't ever in trouble like that. And I mean, and he was genuine, he was authentic. You know what I'm saying? He would say what was on his mind, but at the same time, he would go out there and he would show it week in and week out. And yeah, seeing what he's doing at Delaware State is nothing short of really amazing. A guy like that, first time opportunity as a head coach, really putting himself on the map, putting Delaware State on the map like that. What they're doing, man, it's amazing. It's an amazing thing to see. I too love seeing coaches get these opportunities with these HBCUs and putting a stamp out and putting their flag in the ground early, letting you know what it's going to be, what type of coach they're going to be, what type of culture they're instilling in whatever college that they're coaching at the time, and just really kind of making an impact on not only the sport itself but those players, because you're not only being a coach, you're also you're almost like another father figure to them. You're like the true leader of men, being a head coach like that. So you can kind of see the impact that he's making, and you can't do nothing but really admire and respect that, and you just wish him more success. I wish all the success in the world for DeSean Jackson, because he deserves it, because he's probably one of the truer, genuine brothers that we got right now. And as far as his playing career, like, I mean, what can you say? What can you say about him as a wide receiver, kick returner, that hasn't already been said, as far as how good he was, and some of the plays that he's been on, whether the receiving end, as far as like, him being a true wide receiver or being a punt returner. Like, one of the greatest one of the greatest plays I've ever seen was that Washington game. That first play, like, that was a simple play action bootleg. You run a skinny post, and just burn him, like it was like just instant toast. And Mike Vick just throwing this 65-yard just perfection of a throw. And I also think one of the more exciting things we used to get to see on a weekly basis with those Eagles was just watching DeSean Jackson run. Like, it wasn't, just run. Like he was just
He did effortlessly.
effortless, like so exciting.
Yeah.
Like how exciting he was as a player, how electric he was as a player. You knew week in and week out. You knew all it took was you. You know what I'm saying? You give DeSean Jackson an inch, he take the whole damn mile and take it to the house. That's just how electric and how much of an impact player he was, regardless of what his size was. You can't. DeSean Jackson didn't worry about how big he was. He knew week in, week out, if I had an inch, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna score on you, and there's not a lot you can do about it. So DeSean Jackson for me is definitely a babyface, not only for his impact in the league as a player, but for his impact at Delaware State, what he's done after the league, and podcasts, and just talking about his life and his career and what it's done for him and what kind of man it's turned him into. Now you see the impact with Delaware State, so you can't help but show love and show respect to that man. So he's definitely a babyface.
Carmelo Anthony.
That's a good
Number
one.
one, my favorite phrase is because of Carmelo, man. I'm about to go
We're
Carmelo.
going Carmelo and risk it all.
So, hey, man, I love that phrase, man. I'm about to go Carmelo and risk it all. Uh, let's just be real, man. He's a babyface. My humble opinion. I think too much gets lost in the fact that he, people say that he went for the money and stuff like that. But, that was a time where people were chasing championships. It was a time when everybody was chasing championships. And to me, at certain points of your life, you got to realize, man, you're gonna get criticized one way or another. You're gonna get criticized. It doesn't matter. He stuck to his guns, man. He stuck to being a scorer, and eventually, along down the line of his career, he tried to go for a championship with Oklahoma City, where he was not even he was the fourth option at a certain point. Behind Steven Adams, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook. So he tried. But I don't think people understand how great that he really, really was, man. Winning, Player of the Year as a freshman at Syracuse, winning a national championship at Syracuse,
As a
being a part of
freshman.
the being a part of the Jordan brand, being one of the most prolific scorers during his time. And I think that the fact that he never won a championship, and it's looked at that he went for the money, I think that gets overshadowed by how great he is. And look, in fairness to him, guess what? I'm from New York. I want to try to win something here. Let's see what Phil Jackson is going to do. Let's see what this front office is going to do. Let's see how this thing is going to turn out. It did turn out well. So, the only free agent y'all bought me was Amari Stoudemire, unfortunately for me. But, I did everything I could in order to try to bring some glory back to New York. And Carmelo, man, look, Melo was great, man. Melo was great. He's more than good. I wish he would have went to Chicago and played with Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler and company. Wish he would have did that. Unfortunately, he didn't. But to me, he was the George Gervin of his time. He was the George Gervin of his time. Prolific scorer, very good on the floor. Not so much on on the defensive end. But when it was time, he showed up. You know, when it was time, he showed up, and you saw how much he was revered by fans when he was in the crowd that one game, and the ball came up to his feet, and he literally walked on the court, act like he was going to shoot, and then the crowd started cheering, and then he threw the ball away. You saw how much he was revered during that time. So, man, look, man.
And let's not forget that 08-09 season when Denver, I believe they had the second seed in the Western Conference, and then they made it to the Western Conference Finals. And it was pretty competitive between them going up against Kobe and your Lakers champ.
Yeah, him and Chauncey Billups gave us headaches. They gave us headaches. So I got to pay homage to Carmelo. Every player is not going to be LeBron. Every player is not going to be Jordan. Everybody's not going to win championships, MVPs, and things of that nature. Yet they're going to be remembered. And when you think about Carmelo, considering what he did on the high school and on the college level, and when he got to the pros, not to mention his legacy, his son, and what he's doing in college, guess what? You got to acknowledge it. So, but, man, look, Carmelo was that guy. And look, man, when you want to score, you want to get a bucket, well, scratch that. I'll say he's the I said George Gervin, but in reality, Kevin Durant reminds me more of George Gervin. I'll say he was the modern day Adrian Dantley. So he was modern day Adrian Dantley, just a prolific scorer. If you need a bucket, Carmelo's going to get you that bucket, man.
I say Babyface as well, not just because of how great he was as a scorer, especially with the mid-range. Look what he's doing right now as a father, helping out his young son, Cayenne, in Syracuse. Him and Lala, they've done a great job raising Cayenne. I love his podcast, 7 p.m. Brooklyn podcast. Melo definitely has shown that he can have success not only with his NBA career, but post-NBA career. Definitely winning a national championship at Syracuse. I think that was the first one for Jim Boeheim. I think I forgot the last name, Jim Boeheim out of Syracuse. So that was the first time, and for him to do it as a freshman. Imagine how Carmelo Anthony, if he were drafted number 2 overall, because the Detroit Pistons, they had the number 2 overall pick, and they took Darko Milicic, and which there was Carmelo. There was Chris Bosh. There was Dwayne Wade right after those guys. But when I look at Melo in Denver, you know, people just talked about how him and Iverson, but Melo didn't really have much help, though, during his time in Denver until they brought in Chauncey Billups. Then in New York, remember, there was him and Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni fit Amari Stoudemire because of the pick and roll offense, and plus their familiarity going back to their days in Phoenix with him and Steve Nash. You know, a lot of people, it was reported, remember Linsanity. Remember when Jeremy Lin took over, and there were reports about Carmelo Anthony being jealous of Jeremy Lin. But you look at Melo, 2012 season, helping the New York Knicks capture the number 2 seed. I would love to see the Knicks versus the Miami Heat during that time for the Eastern Conference Finals. Even though I wasn't mad with Indiana because of what Paul George, you know, David West, Roy Hibbert, you know, there were some good players. Frank Vogel at that time was a good head coach, particularly on what he meant on defense. Man, I gotta admit, them shoes, I love the Melo shoes. Those was. Yeah, them shoes were cool. And also, too, the thing I love about Melo's not afraid to embrace and show, because Melo, for those who may not know, he's also Puerto Rican. Him and Lala, they're both Puerto Rican as well, and they pride on that. And when you look at Carmelo Anthony, he's been through a lot. You know, lost his father at the age of 2 years old. And for him to – and he had some issues. Remember, on the court, remember the suspension when he knocked out one of the Knicks players? Remember that brawl the Nuggets and the Knicks had during the 06-07 season? Yeah. Remember that punch? I mean, you can hear that punch.
Yep.
But
I never forget when they criticized him for being on the No Snitching documentary.
Yeah, I remember that. I was going to bring up that.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's all good as always. Great minds think alike. Great minds think alike. That's one of the reasons why I brought you in, big fella. But Melo was able to overturn that. I love the fact that Melo is rocking the braids now because after remember he cut off his hair because he lost a bet after losing. I believe it was either 2K or NBA Live, and he cut off the entire hair. But one of my favorite games for Melo during his Knicks time. I hate to say this because I'm a Bulls fan. Them two the game tying shot in the fourth quarter, and the one he scored in overtime just to give the Knicks a victory. So
Okay.
when you look at Carmelo, 6'7", 6'8", 230, 240, can score from a multitude of ways. Matter of fact, champ, God rest his soul, the late Kobe Bryant said, Melo's the hardest for him to deal with. Even
Him and
more
Tracy.
difficult than LeBron.
Yeah, him and Tracy. Him and
Yeah.
Tracy McGrady. Is, yeah, those were the two guys that was the most difficult to guard for the late great Black Mamba, man. Let's not forget about that 60-point game that he had. That 60 piece.
Yes.
But people made fun of him for that because he got a 60 piece, no assist, 4 rebounds. So, like I said, people are gonna criticize you regardless. So it's just you might as well be yourself, man. But man, I love watching Melo, man. Um, never forget that post game conference when he was in OKC when they pulled the water down his bag. That was funny,
Mm,
and they gave him a hefty fine because of that. But Melo, look, it's better to be loved. It's better to be hated than what you are than to be loved than what you aren't. But and I admire guys like him and Allen Iverson who were authentic to who they were, regardless about public opinion and public backlash. I appreciate guys like that were authentic and true to themselves. They didn't let the masses dictate who they were. They they were who they were, and they were themselves. And you can't help but admire someone like that, even when it is toxic. And you know, probably got the greatest friend group like ever, bro. Next to my friend group, I say. But y'all got LeBron, you know Chris Paul, and LeBron, Chris Paul and company. But my crew's better. So I'll say this, PSP, BRF, and the rest of the Wolf Pack. So you know, but man, I love watching Melo. Man, this is like a nostalgic thing for me because I feel like I'm reliving the 2010s and 2000s all over again because it's like some of the greatest players that we've seen are retiring and they're
Yeah.
leaving the game, and it's just like it's a slow burn. If you really want me to be honest with you, it's a very very slow burn. It's like in a few years, Steph Curry's not going to be here. In a few years, Bron's not going to be here. In a few years, you know, Kevin Durant is not going to be here. Guys who carry
Kyrie,
the league.
and plus Kyrie, you never know. Not saying that Kyrie still can't play, but you never know if
Yeah,
Kyrie possibility he could leave.
yeah. So when you think about a lot of these players that we grew up watching, hell, when Melo was drafted, I was a freshman in high school. I was a freshman in high school. I graduated in 2006. Yes, I'm old. I didn't fight with George Washington, but but I was only like 15 when he got drafted. But seeing him play on that Nuggets team would have been interesting to see. I think the greatest what if story if he had taken that contract with the Denver Nuggets, and it would have been him, LeBron,
Ron and Chris
and
Bosh,
Wade.
Stephen A. Smith has
It was
mentioned
supposed to
several
be him,
times it was
LeBron,
supposed to be, yeah, it was
and
supposed to be
Carmelo.
LeBron, D Wade, and Bosh, not CB. But Melo at the time, I mean, the money. But other than that, I love Melo. He's cool. One of the big things I love about with Melo though, kind of like with Jordan, I love how they smoke the cigars and stuff. I mean, they're just like cool to hang out with, smoke a cigar, talk on a podcast, have a nice drink or so. Kind of like that's what I hopefully do one day with BRF and Champ one day. Just podcasting, either smoking a cigar or having a nice drink or two. It's just he's the type of person that's just chill, laid back, like to have fun. But And also, he's done a good job as a father, especially with Cayenne, man. So shout out to him and Lala. BRF, man.
Yeah. I mean, I might as well kind of make it unanimous here. Yeah. I mean, Melo's a baby face. I mean, I think the thing I hate, I don't like as far as Melo is concerned is like all the constant pot shots that like George Karl wanted to throw at him. Because like George Karl was the head coach of those, was a lot of the head coach of those,
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of those
remember the
nuggets.
book he wrote?
Yeah, that was just like that was I don't know what's the deal with these coaches and they want to just like they want to call out the players like after the fact like they weren't happy with with certain things or like look Melo's one of the greatest ISO scorers we've ever seen. I mean, you hear like the Hezzy Melo and all this other stuff. You hear all you hear all the stuff that Melo's kind of got influence on and stuff like that. But I mean, like he was I mean, I'm trying to imagine those Detroit Pistons teams had Melo was drafted number 2 instead of Darko Milicic. If they drafted Melo too, and then you're looking at Melo and Billups and Rip and Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace, if Melo joined that squad at the peak of their powers, where they were like one of the two best defensive teams in the NBA with the Spurs, and if you add a Melo who brought his level of scoring to balance that out, it's a what if. You kind of think about what that Detroit Pistons team would have been had they had Melo's like elite level scoring. When it got to that point on that squad, I think it's one of the biggest what ifs in NBA history had Melo gone to instead of Darko Milicic to Detroit. And it's something we think about. But honestly, though, with Melo, it's about the influence he's had on a lot of these guys as far as like scoring and just their style of play and also with and you see a lot and you see like oh yeah I enjoy his podcast. I enjoy his podcast too. He's got one of the better podcasts out there. And you brought up his son. Like his son's going to be a really really good player. I've seen him. I've seen clips of him. I've seen highlights of him this year so far at Syracuse, and he's given me no reason to think that he won't be a good pro. But I mean, Melo just he takes things in stride. He's not a I mean, he can talk, he can have fun, but he wasn't necessarily always the most boisterous, guy. But at the same time, he was one of those when it was time to get down, and when it was time to get down, and you needed a bucket with the game on the line. Carmelo Anthony was usually your guy, and he just like I think I think seeing him now get his flowers is well deserved because I think a lot of these talking heads and stuff nowadays don't really truly appreciate how good of a player Carmelo Anthony was. They see the fact that okay, he wasn't the greatest as far as like setting up his teammates and playmaking and assists and stuff like that. But at the same time, though, Carmelo wasn't. New York didn't do all that to get Carmelo Anthony in just focusing on like they brought him in to score the basketball. They brought him in to do what he needed to do to help the New York Knicks elevate it. And I mean, unfortunately, he couldn't get him to that point of a championship. But at the same time, I don't think he should. I don't think his career and his legacy should be dictated off of the fact that he never won a championship. He's one of the greatest scorers the league has ever seen, multi time All Star over, and just shout out to Carmelo Anthony for just really finding a niche outside of basketball, like doing his podcast show and all this stuff. He's everywhere. You see him. I mean, just shout out to him living his life and doing his thing. And he wasn't really a troublemaker at all. So I mean, yeah, Melo's a baby face for me too.
Yeah, indeed. All right, fellas. Now, this one is a wrestler. Again, it has to do with him. This is a wrestler that I'm about to bring up as far as Babyface heel. We're just only going to talk about him, the person. Shawn Michaels.
Tweener. If you're looking at the beginning of his career, he's an anal retentive, and that's just putting it mildly.
He's a what?
Anal retentive.
I've never heard the term. I'm sorry.
He's an asshole.
Okay.
He's an
You could have just said prick, dick, jackass,
asshole.
or
Yeah, I tried to keep it clean. Kind of got dirty early, but anal retention. But
why is Mama Champ looking at you?
no, no, no. But try to expand the vocabulary just a little bit.
Mhm.
Just like Kai. But yeah, he was kind of an anal retentive at the beginning of his career. But when you look at the back end of his career, it was a lot better. Plus, he got easier to get along with. He got married, have a son, and look, the NXT locker room loves it. They love it. So I mean, they always doing these little skits on TikTok with him and trying to see if he can recognize each and every last one of those, every last one of their voices and things of that nature. I say tweener. If you look at it, the front half of his career, very very prickish, very very much of a butt. You look at the back end of his career, which arguably was better than the front end of his career in the great works of BRF. I'm not going to take credit for that because that's plagiarism at its highest. But if you look at the back end of his career, much like BRF stated before, it's
not just BRF. A lot of people, Casual. Shout out to Casual. He also stated it as well as too. Flash, our guy.
yeah,
No one's
yeah,
a bigger Shawn Michaels fan than him. He's considered Shawn his GOAT. Grant as well.
yes indeed. And I'll just say tweener based on what. But look, man, if you had not seen, here's what I will say: tweener, babyface, or what have you. If you are a first time wrestling fan and you have never watched the sport or sports entertainment in wrestling, and I had to put you in front of the TV and I had to let you watch a wrestling match, it's going to take me 2 hours in order for us to get through that. Because the 3 matches that I'm going to let you watch will be the Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12, the ladder match at WrestleMania 10, and the Kurt Angle match at WrestleMania 21. Those are the 3 matches. If you are not a wrestling fan, you've never seen wrestling before, and I want to sell you on wrestling as far as the athleticism is concerned, as far as the competitiveness is concerned, as far as the smoothness of it is concerned. If I'm trying to sell a first time person who had never seen wrestling before, and they said, "Look, you got 2 hours. We're gonna watch 3 matches. I want you to sell me on wrestling." I will sit right in front of the TV and turn on the Iron Man match, WrestleMania 12. I would turn on the ladder match for WrestleMania 10 and the Kurt Angle match for WrestleMania 25, WrestleMania 21, because those are the matches that are the cornerstone of wrestling, and Shawn Michaels was able to put them on. Those wrestling matches are so good that you can watch them with the sound down, and that's what I would sell them on. Those are 3 matches you can put in front of somebody and say this exemplifies athleticism, competitiveness, and smoothness in wrestling. You could turn the sound down, and you can see everything that I just exhibited that you would find in a regular sports program. Those are the 3 matches that I would sell. But as far as personality goes, tweener, because beginning of his career, very very hard to deal with. Back end of his career, a little bit easier depending on who you ask. Because remember, he had the incident with Hurricane Helms, and that's how come Hurricane Helms ended up getting fired. Allegedly, I will say.
I think the best match I've ever seen from Shawn Michaels, champ, SummerSlam. His first time back after 4 years. And Shawn still could perform just like that. Shawn is one of certain people that we've heard of the old saying in wrestling, he can have a match with the broom and make the broom look like a superstar. That was Shawn Michaels. And that was his first match back in like 4 years since WrestleMania 14. I lean towards tweener, but you could lean towards babyface with Shawn Michaels because of the turnaround in his life. Taker. Mark Undertaker, he said it himself back in the 90s. If Shawn was on fire, I wouldn't piss on him to set the fire out. Don't they have a great relationship now? I would
Mhm.
like to believe so. Triple H, he's gotten a lot of criticism and flack because of how he's running WWE, and also because he is the son-in-law to, of course, Vince McMahon and whatever. But he was there through a lot of Shawn Michaels' good and definitely a lot of bad, particularly when Shawn was on pain pills and alcohol. Shawn Michaels, remember, whew, I'm sorry. I had to watch that video of Mark Henry. Remember how he threatened Shawn Michaels to kill him and the Click. Something about hiding his crutches. Shawn Michaels, make no mistake about it, he was a prick back in the day. But at the same time, it's also fair to say that Vince tolerated him for so long because A, the talent that Shawn Michaels was, and B, Jim Ross has often said Shawn Michaels reminds Vince McMahon of a young Vince McMahon. Defiant, attitudinal, bold, cocky. I mean, a lot of that what you saw from Shawn is also what you saw from a young Vince McMahon. And Shawn Michaels as a performer, Ric Flair said it, the greatest in-ring performer of all time. Shawn, when it came to the wrestling boots, was like the Michael Jordan, as Stone Cold Steve Austin said, in the ring. Shawn definitely was a prick. I mean, he and Brett, that wasn't scripted. That was real. A lot of it was real, especially when Shawn Michaels cut the Sunny Days promo, as well as the heated rivalry between he and Brett. But Shawn, I will give kudos for turning around his life and making amends with a lot of people, especially Undertaker. His second comeback to the WWE was even better. And shout out to our good guy, Kieran. Appreciate you, Kieran. For Shawn to turn around his career, I think he was better in his second run, because more importantly, the drugs and alcohol. That was no longer there anymore. That was no longer a problem, champ. Even though, champ, you mentioned WrestleMania 14. Had he not dropped the belt to Steve, Undertaker would have done something to him. But I think him stepping away from wrestling at that particular time was the best thing for him, because Shawn had that back injury from Taker at the Royal Rumble, but he also needed to get his life together. Fortunately, he was able to find that with Rebecca, his two children. Just listening to Shawn Michaels now, and also being a great mentor for the NXT wrestlers. And they look at him, I hate using the term, they kind of look at him as a god because of how brilliant he was as a performer and as a student regarding wrestling. Um I just love Shawn Michaels and his talent, his art. And I say tweener, but I wouldn't be mad if you call him babyface, because of what he means to wrestling now, how he's able to redeem himself, and what he means to wrestling. So I say so I say tweener, but I would lean towards babyface with Shawn. BRF.
Man, though the weight, I'm almost. I think if it wasn't for the degree of just hell that was the first part, as far as like his career in WWE, I would say like this the back half of his career, and then going and getting into like NXT and becoming a Booker there. He's a tweener for me too, but you can't help but admire the change that he made in his life, giving himself to God and really kind of centering himself and putting things back into perspective. Because man, yeah, the first half of his career, like in particular, like that new generation era, going into that beginning of the Attitude Era, like before he had to, before he that initial retirement because his back injury, that saying calling Shawn Michaels a prick would have been nice, like the type of guy he was early in his career. And just the constant backstage politics, constant arguments, constant turmoil. Only reason Vince McMahon was putting up with him was because at the time Shawn Michaels was the face of the company, and he was just printing money for him. I mean,
Yeah.
just flat out printing money for him was why Vince McMahon tolerated it. If he didn't cause the ground rise of success that started with the WWE then before they really got into the Attitude Era and just basically go through that boom period of wrestling, Shawn Michaels might have already been gone. But you can't sleep on the fact that my two greatest in ring performers of all time, wrestling wise, ever are Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles. Um, and just Shawn Michaels, his storytelling, his ring IQ, his athleticism, even late stages in his career. The reason why I say Shawn Michaels had a better second half of his career than first half of his career, even though the match quality was good in the beginning of his career, guys, being able to get good matches out of Diesel, his rivalry with Razor Ramon, his rivalry with Vader, like Shawn Undertaker, the first Hell in a Cell, just the Iron Man match with Brett, like a lot of those matches. But then you look at the second half of his career, like the rivalry with Triple H, WrestleMania 25 and 26 with the Undertaker, the
Ric
rivalry he had
Flair.
with the WrestleMania 24 match, that one match of that year, the match of 2008, WrestleMania 24 was him and Ric Flair, was match
That
of the
was
year
great.
that year, was match of the year that year. Um, like his rivalry had in '07 with Cena over the WWE Championship. Their match at WrestleMania 23 slept on, really good match. Of course, 21 with Angle, like
And
they
let's
were
not
in the
forget
mid.
22 with
Oh,
Mr. McMahon.
with Mr. McMahon, with
And
Mr.
I know Mama
McMahon.
Mama Champ is gonna kill me, but I'm sorry.
Let me
Anytime
tell
when
you.
I think Mr. McMahon and Shane McMahon and the Spirit Squad versus Shawn and God,
Let me let
I'm
me
sorry.
let me tell you something. I don't think there has ever been a moment of just sheer deserved comeuppance than what Shawn Michaels did to Vince McMahon that night at WrestleMania 22. In particularly the two spots for me that stand, or the three spots that stand out. The spot where he was whooping his butt with that belt, and Jim Ross's call when he was laying that leather belt on him was one of the great, because you know how Jim Ross felt about the Vince McMahon character at the time. You just know it just Jim no, Jim Ross did not look at Vince like that, and nobody did. And just his commentary when Shawn Michaels was whooping him with that belt was some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard. And then the chair shot, like it's high, it's far, it's gone, because they were in Chicago, and we know, like, Wrigley Field, and at the time when I think it was still called Comiskey Park with the Cubs and the White Sox, that was one of the loudest unprotected chair shots I have ever heard in my life. Was that WrestleMania 22? That initial chair shot, like the literal dent he put in that chair after hitting Vince McMahon with it was just classic. And then the ladder spot, sliding the trash can on him, on the table, climbing up the ladder, doing the DX, doing the second, the DX chop, and then dropping that perfect elbow through the trash can. To me, if you're a wrestling fan and you had a dream scenario of how a heel will finally get theirs in the end, that's the match I will put on for you. If you want to see a heel get what's coming to them, it's that street fight at WrestleMania 22 with Shawn and Vince. Like, just I mean, it's definitely not going to be, for the wrestling fan, but for the fan of sports entertainment and professional wrestling who understands that every match isn't going to be a clinic. That was one of the better matches I'd seen that year. But no, but he's a tweener with really just how he's kind of like recollected himself and got his life on track. And now you see NXT, and you see him be a big time mentor to all of the development of stars. Getting the guys caught up now, like whether it's whether you see now, you see Obafemi being called up, you see Trick being called up, you see Javon Evans being called up, and even with past guys that he's kind of like really put his hands on, as far as like helping them develop and become what they are, and the women as well too. Shawn Michaels, I think right now, is the best booker in terms of women's wrestling. I think he is what he's done for that women's division in NXT and how he's just really cultivated it and made it what it is today. Like I've said it and I will continue to say it. I think NXT might have the best. Might have. I think they've had the best women's division in the world really since. Good lord, really since what like 1920, like around like COVID time, just just the way he's able, his booking and just the way he's able to just make stuff work, even with the callbacks that he's done with angles and storylines in his career, the fact that and just able to make stuff work. Like you can't say I think you can't say enough about Shawn Michaels and what he's done in NXT, but I'm just happy the man is still alive. The stuff that he was put himself through as far as like the addictions and all that other stuff early in his career. I'm just glad the man is still alive because I am not gonna lie. I thought there was a point we were gonna lose him before he really got going. Like he was that bad off, and to get himself right is nothing short of, hey, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I'm a Christian. I'm a Baptist. I'm a believer myself. I'm not a radical one, but I do try to live a certain way that I feel like he would be proud of and for me the biggest thing of that is just being non-judgmental first and foremost, being non-judgmental. um so I'm just proud Shawn Michaels is still alive to being able to do his thing. But yeah, he's a tweener, but I wanted to put him as a baby face, but it's I just know there are still some people that are probably on the fence with him. But as far as I'm concerned with Shawn Michaels, I'm just glad he's still around, getting to live his best life and doing what he wants to do, and as being in the wrestling business and just having fun and just being a mentor. I think he's doing what he's meant to do. Like as good as a wrestler as he was, as good of a performance he was, I think right now being in NXT is his calling and is what he's meant to do. So shout out Shawn Michaels, keep doing your thing in NXT because I just want to see him continue to grow. Hopefully become a book. Hopefully start booking on the main roster eventually. I'm sorry, Triple H. I love you, Triple H. I'm sorry, but right now Shawn Michaels is just he in his bag booking in NXT right now, and I don't think nobody can deny it.
Well, he's definitely capitalizing off the NXT. I mean, look at the women that he had, Jada Parker. Obviously a lot of other women, but Shawn Michaels. I mean, and plus, speaking of the women, they love him too. The sexy boy, the boy toy, even at 60 years old, still look better than most men, and he's still entertaining. Still, I mean, that just tells you how charismatic Shawn is, not only to the women but also to the men. He can grab attention. That's the thing about Shawn, the beauty of it. So, shout out to Shawn Michaels.